It's the Off-Grid Prep Family Podcast.
Hey everybody, today is episode 17. 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Redundancy.
Redundancy is a good thing.
It's the key to off-grid life, and it's
really
the key
is.
to prepping.
It's amazing how many things, if you don't make them redundant and something breaks and you're a boat in the ocean with no motor.
Yeah.
That always bothered me. Boats that don't have a twin drive?
Yeah.
Are you kidding
Seems
me?
like you're putting a lot of faith in that.
All the lobster
engine.
boats out here only have one engine.
Every boat that we've
It's
ever
terrible.
been on or even owned, there's something going to go wrong with that boat.
Guaranteed.
It's like a guaranteed.
And an off-grid home is basically a boat in the ocean.
Yeah. So you got to have redundancy. And prepping, you have to have redundancy.
You do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because if you only have one,
If
it's
one-
going to break.
If you bet on one crop and it fails, or
Yeah.
if you have one type of flour or food and you get weevils in it,
Yeah.
nature likes to mess with stuff.
It does. It does. Shall we go really quick into what are, let's say you could only afford to be redundant in 3 items in your off-grid life. What would they be?
Batteries, the power, the inverter,
The inverter
and the food.
and the food. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say generator. Although with
No.
a decent solar
We
system,
were
you
short
hardly
on
ever need a
yeah,
generator.
we were short on solar panels.
Yeah.
We added 50% to our array, and
now
that
we're
made
not.
all the
Yeah,
difference. We
okay.
hardly ever run our
Back
generator.
in the day, it was the generator.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
but
we
not
were
so
running
much
it
anymore.
2-3 times a month. Like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And also, the brand of solar panels I had wasn't as good at low light. It was really weird, actually.
Yeah, because the new ones, even though they're used, because we like to get repo solar panels.
Yeah,
that's
pick
our
up the
jam.
used stuff.
Yeah.
Don't have any pride.
No.
Just
it's
suck it up.
$100.
$100 a panel,
Yeah.
and I think they were like 4 years old.
Yeah.
Practically brand new.
The other thing that I thought you were going to say was like refrigeration. But no,
Yeah,
you're right.
You
If
know what? It can't
still-
be 3 then. It can't
If
be
you don't
3.
have
It's
a
gotta
battery
be.
and an inverter, then none of that other stuff matters either.
If you have one battery pack
Yeah.
and it fails, you're toast.
Yeah.
One inverter, you're toast.
Yeah.
Like,
even if you just have a smaller backup system that runs, say, your little cottage
Yeah.
or Airbnb or your RV or something, at least then you're not completely dead in the water if you have to switch it out.
yeah, our current redundancy, the only thing of those large items, actually, we don't have a spare battery pack per se, but I have a battery pack down at the cottage for the communication system,
Yeah,
and I have another battery pack at the gate.
right.
So I can steal both of those. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my redundancy.
It's
which
not
gives
as
me
big
peace
as the
It's
original.
not as big, but
it's
it'll get the
better
job
than
done.
nothing,
Yeah.
Shall we, before we move on, shall we thank our first sponsor of the day?
Yeah.
Thrive Life Freeze-Dried Food?
Love the Thrive Life.
Thrive Life Freeze-Dried Food. It comes in Pantry cans and number 10 cans, and it's just food in a can.
The number 10 can is the giant can.
Yeah, yeah. And you can get them in cases, so they're even more affordable. And what we do is every month, at the beginning of the month, they tell you what's on sale, and we just get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're signed up as like an affiliate, you get even a little bit more of a discount, and you get a little bit of extra advance notice when something that's usually sold out comes back in. You also get advance notice on those sales that only happen twice a year, Boxing Day and, I don't know, early June or
can't
something
remember.
like that. If you use the referral code on our Friends and Affiliates page, you get a 15% discount on your first order, and that's not enough. It's a good deal.
It is a really good deal.
15% is good.
Yeah.
You can visit offgridprepfamily.com/friends. So redundancy. Redundancy in off-grid life. We're talking about generators and
Well-
the parts that you often need to replace in said generator. That's about learning your system and learning your equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. So our generators, we use the Furman W03083. It's a 3300 watt. I'm closing my eyes to concentrate on this. You can't see this. It's a 3300 watt inverter generator. If you want clean power, you need an inverter generator. There is no substitute. You will ruin your electronics.
And so we have a backup generator.
We do. Same
And
model,
We
the identical.
also have backup parts for said generator. In our case, that is what? What do you always try to keep on hand?
The throttle stepper motor.
Okay.
It's a tiny little 8-volt part that controls, some of you will know about carburetors and valves. The inverter generator Furman designed has steppers, DC stepper motors on the valves for the air and the fuel and the throttle. Inside the carburetor. And instead of traditional carburetors use springs and levers. They do that so they can it's like fake fuel injection, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway,
As usual, you add stuff and then it starts to break.
the throttle stepper motor, not the choke, not the air stepper motor, the throttle dies like every 50 to 100 hours.
Okay.
It's kind of obscene,
So if you're using
actually.
it to like build your house, or you're just getting your system up and you're putting a lot of hours on your generator,
Yep.
chances are it's going to die and you're going to think you need a new generator.
And the techs didn't even know.
No.
I ended up ripping the engine apart and
Yeah.
cleaning the combustion chamber and resetting the valves, which they weren't out of alignment.
Yeah.
It is over. Anyway, the techs didn't even know that they have such a problem. Unfortunately, it is a company owned by a giant Chinese conglomerate.
So it's
can't
never
remember
going
the
to
name.
change.
It's never going to change. Every time I phone them, they say the same spiel.
Yeah.
I try and tell them, give them real feedback.
It doesn't matter to them.
Nobody cares. Now, on
So
the
do you just
upside,
try and keep one of those on hand.
I have 4 right now.
Yeah.
I phone every so often. When one dies, I phone immediately and get a replacement.
And
I
they'll mail them
also-
out for free.
Yeah, they mail them out for free.
And if you ask them to send them FedEx?
No, actually, they just do that automatically. They send them FedEx.
No, because they sent one Canada Post and
They-
it took
oh,
forever.
you're
I'm not
right.
sure if it ever even came.
No, it did. It was about, I think, 3 months.
So if you're not in the States, ask them to send it FedEx and
Because
it'll
Canada
come for
Post
free.
is
It's
an
the
abomination.
worst. Apart from the generator.
Did you know that Amazon has stopped using Canada Post
Thank God.
altogether? That we struggled so
It
much
was
with that.
such a pain.
It was a nightmare for years.
If I'm going to order something so that I don't have to drive to town for groceries, don't send my subscribe and save to town. Yeah.
Oh my
it's terrible.
gosh, it was awful.
It's like, oh, good. Now I also
but it
have
was
to be there
we
before
had
5
one
p.m.
bad delivery driver, and
Yeah.
and
He
nobody
just
cared.
She wouldn't.
She wouldn't deliver anything, and of course management didn't care.
Yes.
And
Moving on.
But that's how easy it is for things to fall apart.
It is.
That ties into why we're off the grid.
Yes.
Things
just
can fall
opt
apart in a
out.
heartbeat.
Yeah. Inverter. Having a spare inverter is very important. If your inverter dies, it's not like you can just go to town and get another one.
No, you can't just get these things.
At
These
minimum, you're waiting for Amazon.
at best you might have a solar supply or a solar installer.
But then it would be a really expensive inverter.
You're going to pay an extra zero
like out the nose. Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
You just want to get your power back up and running, so keep a spare inverter, even if it has to be
Yeah.
not as great of a model as your main one.
Yeah.
Pumps. We keep extra pumps.
We
What
do.
kind of pumps?
We use the diaphragm pump that
Right.
I described in the last episode.
So whatever your house would be sunk without,
Yeah.
keep an extra.
Yeah, the pumps are great. I think I mentioned in the last episode I bought the last spare in 2020. So I have forgotten the last time I changed it.
But I don't know. What if you didn't have it? Then
But
you have no
if
water.
I lose it, I'm
Then you're hauling
once
water
again
in
I'm toast.
buckets like a hobo.
And a replacement
Sorry, hobos probably don't haul water in buckets, do they?
pumps. If my pump dies and I want to pressurize my system with a water pump, the closest comparison to my pump is $1,000 jet pump from Princess Auto.
Mm-hmm.
It's still kind of a specialty thing. So
Yeah.
instead of my $120 diaphragm pump, I'm going to go out and spend $1,000
And it
plus.
uses a lot more power, right?
Enormous amount of power.
How about weird things around your house that might not be off-grid related, but you know your own appliances? For example, we always need to keep an extra oven element. Our oven element, it just
Right.
goes. Every year or two, it just goes.
It's the element. It's the terrible engineering. It was designed more for safety than convenience.
Yeah, but
it's
it's-
a glow element.
Right. So it's
It
like
gets
having
red
a glow
hot.
plug in your oven.
It is so scary to know, like, is it going to glow hot enough? Is my house going to fill with propane first?
Yeah.
It's a Kenmore. Like, this is what they did.
Anyways, figure out your
It
appliances.
goes all the time.
And if there's something that always seems to need replacing, just keep an extra one. Water systems. We have 2 separate water systems because
I'm really happy with.
You're sunk if one goes.
Or one leak.
Yeah.
Like, if
Then
our
you'd
south
lose-
water system
yeah.
leaks and the tanks bleed out in the middle of the night,
You'd lose all your water.
and since we have a north water system, we can shut it off with a
Yeah.
valve.
Freezers and fridges. We don't always run our second fridge and second freezer. That's more like
No.
a fall, like when there's just so much food coming in that
Yeah.
you've got to just keep it.
You run them in the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we always have them here and ready to go just in case something were to go wrong with the fridge or the freezer.
Yep.
Because that would be catastrophic.
Yeah, we're not. This is one of the things we just haven't had the chance to set up with. If our giant deep freeze dies, we're going to have to do some running around and find another deep freeze.
We have the small deep freeze.
We
that
have the
can
small
hold
one.
the critical things, and
Yeah.
then we could quickly can whatever's left.
That's right, we could. Yeah.
It would just be a pain, but at least it
But if
wouldn't
you
be
have a
like
deep
the end
freeze,
of everything.
You should have a backup the same size.
Yeah, that
if you
would be
can.
ideal. It
Yeah.
would take a lot of space, though.
Now, the one thing that you don't really need is a backup house. Now, we have a backup house. It's really, really small,
But
it's there.
yeah.
So it's like there's varying degrees of importance.
Okay, for
Now,
redundancy.
If your house
Okay.
goes, that's probably the worst thing.
Yes.
But the likelihood of your house going
Yeah.
is pretty slim.
Risk assessment.
It is risk assessment.
How about ways to cook food? For example, we have the wood stove, like the cook stove.
Well, technically, we have the Northwood stove, which we did cook on.
That's true.
It's not really designed for cooking, but you can
but you
fit
can do
pans on it.
stovetop stuff, yeah.
We've got the Southwood stove, which we were so lucky to come by. This old, antique, gorgeous Elmira.
Yeah.
It's a Canadian
Super
company.
cute.
Wood stove.
It works amazing.
It's
it just runs,
incredible.
it cooks and camps
It is
for us
finicky.
all winter, and you have to
The
learn
name Elmira, I just, it feels fitting. Like
She's
Evelyn.
a little crotchety.
You
But
gotta
once
treat
you
her like a
learn-
lady. You can't be crass and crude. It's a system.
Yes.
But once it's up and running, it's a beautiful thing.
And then, of course, we have propane
Propane barbecue.
and propane stove.
And
for
we do
in
have the
summer.
propane stove. And finally, if everything else quit, I could light a fire outside.
Yeah, but learning how to cook on fire, open fire,
Ooh,
that's
tricky.
a skill. Like
It is
if
a
you're
skill.
if you're not gonna buy one of those fancy propane burners, but you're gonna want to dunk all your chickens in the fall, all your meat birds.
I did not like that propane burner. It was
It
terrifying.
was pretty scary. I would rather do
It
the
was
fire.
it was easier to cook a fire if you.
But if that's only if you're used to cooking on fire. So that's something.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you can't be like, oh, I'll just cook a fire.
Oh,
I'll
you
just-
have to know.
yeah,
How, you
yeah.
have to have the wood supply and know what
It
kind
has
of
to
wood.
be
and
properly seasoned. And
once you get a feel for it, it is.
yeah,
It
but
is better
you
and
gotta
easier.
practice, yeah. As far as like food supply sources, I feel like that's important to have redundancy in. Especially right now, people are getting rid of their herds of beef. So like you might think you have a source for beef, and then it turns out that with the cost of feed and fuel and fertilizer, they culled their herd.
Yeah, last
which,
week we picked up 50 pounds of beef, but next month he might be out.
by the way, that's why you're seeing beef on the shelves right now. And that's why the
Oh, I
prices
didn't
are a
know
little
that.
bit lower, is because people are culling their herds.
Culling their herds, yeah,
Because
getting rid of
they
their
can't
steers
afford-
and their
They
dairy
can't afford to
calves.
keep 'em.
Right.
And so the people are thinking, oh, there's no shortage. Can you imagine how many years it's going to take to regain that population? Because now you don't have any of those cattle in the system.
Oh, so this isn't a natural culling? This
No,
is like
this is
a
like-
epidemic problem?
This is small producers saying,
Uh-huh.
I can't afford to keep these cows.
But the prices are so high.
The prices of what?
Beef, meat.
Not for them. They don't make that price.
Wow.
They make. I
Thanks,
think it
New
was-
York.
I think it
Thanks,
was eight-
city centers, and a bunch of.
It was 8 cents per dollar or something that the producers get unless they're selling directly.
So buy local.
So buy local, find a farmer, and have a backup.
We
Same with
we
all
buy
your
from the guy
produce.
who raises his cows.
Yeah. And we go pick it up at this cute little butcher that's just a barn. And it
And
comes in giant banana boxes in clear garbage bags.
Great. No,
And-
they're food grade bags. They look
Okay.
clear. They're good. He
They
uses
look
the good
like
stuff.
clear garbage
He's actually
bags.
quite fastidious, despite being a very heavy smoker,
Yeah.
which I maintain
keeps you healthy.
The smoke kills the bacteria.
It must.
You
didn't
does.
hear about many smokers dying of the you-know-what, did ya?
No, you didn't.
I think it killed all
despite
the
the
stuff in
lung
their
problems.
lungs.
Of course it does. Gives them other problems, but that's a whole other thing.
I heard the other day only 5% of smokers die of lung cancer. I bet you 5% of everybody else dies of lung cancer too.
Wait, you mean it was all lies?
Okay, fine. Yeah, okay, I shouldn't be surprised. Animals. Redundancy in animals. For example, we try to keep 2 ages of hens and 2 breeds at a time. Mm-hmm. So, like, every year we're getting a new flock of hens. We like to get them at point of lay because it just saves so much time.
I think we
feeding
have
chicks.
6 breeds right now.
Yeah, and they're all different ages. So some of them are just coming into the eggs, and some of them are just starting to kind of tweedle off. Next year, those ones will go in the soup pot, and then we'll have a new batch. But you can't put all of your chicks in one basket.
Eggs in the basket?
I just don't like that.
I like that. You can't put all your chicks in one basket.
Nice. And same for meat birds. It's a lot easier to do multiple batches than it is to do one batch of 100 all at once. Mm-hmm. And something can happen to that first batch, and then you've still got the next batch lined up to go. We like to do our meat birds end of August, because then they're not dying from heat stroke in the middle of summer, and we don't have to start them with a lot of extra heat. It's time to say thank you to EMP Shield. Hello, EMP Shield. Thank you for saving our devices from EMPs, CMEs, or lightning strikes. You can get an EMP Shield for your car, your generator, or your whole house. And if you use OGPF as your coupon code, you get $50 off any unit, which is a pretty big deal.
It is.
Thank you, EMP Shield. Let's talk about, garden areas. We have 3 different areas of garden.
We do.
Because sometimes a pest will really dig their heels into one area.
They'll just decimate it.
And they'll ignore another. And so for crop rotation, like, we're talking big gardens, so it's not like we can't rotate within those areas. But for example, the corn in the south field is a completely different, they're at a completely different rate and dealing with completely different bugs.
Totally different pests.
Than the ones up closer to the house. Mm-hmm. Also, if you have multiple garden areas, you can grow multiple varieties of corn.
Yes.
Because they have to be, I think it's 150 feet apart, but if you live somewhere windy, it should probably be more like 500 feet apart.
Well, and there's something that we're just learning is the kind of the more holistic approach to gardening. Like, if you want to grow things, rule number 1, kill everything else.
Yeah.
With, like, murder. Like, bugs, weeds, it decimate it. This whole... What's it called? Companion planting? Oh. It's crap.
It's kind of like a dual purpose bird. It's a really good way to grow 2 things not very well.
Yeah, very poorly. So
and if you get
monoculture,
an egg layer and a meat hen or
you're
a meat bird,
get crappy meat and crappy eggs.
But if you get them that are like meant to do one thing, they're very good at that one thing.
Yeah, they might be more susceptible, but not always.
Yeah.
The same thing goes with our gardens. Monocrops.
We do big blocks of
now
all the same thing.
It's all together.
All our cabbages are all like there's like 6 different kinds of cabbages, but they are clumped together, and we don't have daffodils in between them. And the ridiculousness about planting nasturtiums and marigolds around your crops. There's a really good podcast on maritime gardening where he has an entomologist talk about how hilarious that is. We can go into that on another episode.
Yeah, that is.
We should go into an episode on
the basics of
gardening, old wives' tales.
Yeah, we're talking about gardening and redundancy.
Yeah.
And for us, the redundancy is blocks of monoculture. And now we have several blocks, all the different zones, and they're only a few feet apart. But there's something, if you want to get, I don't know, weird about it, when you plant plants together, they're happier. It's like their juju.
It's like when you plant carrots together, close enough together in the rows that their little crowns touch each other.
The weeds don't come up.
There's no weeds.
Like ever. It's amazing. And it's an energy thing. So,
but if you throw some beets in there, all of a sudden you're pulling out all the other weeds.
If you plant beans around your sunflowers, your beans murder your sunflowers.
And they'll take down your corn. And
they'll take down your corn.
Yeah.
So no companion planting.
Yeah.
That's a bad city idea.
It's really good if you only have 4 square feet of garden space, maybe, and a lot of time to tend to it.
Get off on watching things
and maybe,
die.
Yeah, you want to have like 2 little stalks of corn. But we're talking about feeding yourself.
Yeah.
We plant multiple varieties of each thing because sometimes, for whatever reason, the first thing will flop.
Yeah.
We also will do like multiple sowings of each thing.
Oh yeah, it's constant. Yeah.
Redundancy. And also, like, there are some things that we only can like every 2 years, like
that
pickles.
That could be another podcast. The title would be 8 out of 10 beans.
What?
It's like 8 out of 10 beans die.
Nice.
And you keep resowing.
I guess so.
That's just be 8 out of 10 beans ...
That's depressing.
But it's true.
It's true.
You just crack on and you replant and you just keep going.
Fill the holes until something grows.
That's right.
And with things like fruit, like apples, blueberries, grapes. I'm thinking about cucumbers. There's some things that it's like they do really well one year and not so well the next year. And so if we do get a good crop, we try to can 2 years worth.
Yeah.
Because then A, you're not having to can pickles every year. You only have to can them every other year. And B, chances are next year you're not going to get very many apples. There's going to be an early frost or something else will happen.
Yeah.
And so you've got 2 years worth in your pantry.
But that said, eating seasonally also that expands into multi-year eating.
That's true.
Like last year we had a glut of cherries from our little trees, and this year I did a reel.
There's 1.
3. There were 3. There were 2 hidden ones way up high, and that's it.
Yeah.
We had bowlfuls of cherries from those little trees, and they're twice the size this year. So maybe this year they're putting up more suckers, getting ready to grow. It's weird.
It's just the way that life is. You have to have lots of options.
So that's redundancy, redundant in just your variation of crops.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you have to be a fascist. Like you have to, a tyrant? I don't know. You have to smite anything you don't want in your garden.
Yeah.
Like with fire and brimstone, Old Testament.
Like
attitude.
not Roundup, but...
No, not chemicals.
We use other things, but still, you can't love the weeds.
No,
they have to stay
The
back.
weeds are evil. They are killing your food.
Competition.
Yep.
What about like pantry ingredients? Like,
oh yeah,
food
you've
staples.
done so well. You've created such a diverse pantry this year.
Yeah, and
with such weird stuff. Once again, you got the ramen on sale.
I did.
And we still eat it. It's great. The kids love it. Not all the time.
Many cases of ramen, and they were on for 4 or 5 cents a pack. So we still have it.
We've been eating it for months. Probably, I'm gonna say twice a month. We'll have a ramen meal with veggies. Like we'll melt in some Swiss chard or cook in some Swiss chard.
And chicken from outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's food.
It's food. But trying to use, the same basic dozen ingredients and turn them into many, many different meals is really valuable, because then you're not storing a bunch of weird random things that you only use for like one special. Yeah. We have a couple of those, like some holiday foods that are like sentimental, but for the most part, we don't store...
Cranberry sauce.
Yeah, we don't store unitaskers. Although when the chickens and the potatoes and everything's coming out in the fall, we use cranberries a lot because we have that turkey dinner like 18 times in a row. Yeah. Everybody loves it.
You crave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get the gravy from the rendering. Yeah.
Pickled beans. Oh. Yum. Oh, I was thinking of another thing that we have in redundancy that I would not want to do without. Chainsaw.
Oh, yes.
Because when you need a chainsaw, you need it now.
Quick share about my chainsaw story. Okay. I finally found the chainsaw I like. It's an Ego. Ego 56-volt chainsaw.
And it charges on solar.
It's a lithium-ion system, but they have far and away the best battery platform. They're a little more expensive than brand name or whatever. Anyway, the one thing that fried or died in my Ego was the oil pump.
But we're talking about after hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Oh yeah, we're cutting down,
milling trees and stacking firewood.
It's not just firewood. We milled lumber to build the house. This is not normal behavior for a chainsaw.
Yeah.
However, the part that died was I think it was a $6 part.
The oil pump?
Yes, the oil
Yeah.
pump. But the oil pump, it was actually a gasket on the piston. I'm talking 3 cents.
Probably, yeah.
But they couldn't replace it. Like their warranty program set up
They couldn't
really
figure
weird. They
out
wanted
how to
me to take it to a local store, which was
Would've
on
been
the
like-
next continent.
Yeah.
Because we're not on the continent.
Ferry ride and an 8-hour drive and
And
a
I knew what
passport
was wrong with it.
away.
I told them the oil pump's leaking. The inside of the saw is filling with oil.
Yeah.
And eventually I convinced them to send me a new part. And instead of sending me this little ring, they sent me the entire new oil tank assembly and everything. And what I'm getting at is that 30-cent O-ring, rendered my chainsaw completely inoperable.
Yeah.
Like,
But we have 2 of those.
we have 2.
Yeah.
But that's just
and
one.
extra bars and extra chains and make sure you get your files and extra things because it's all a system. And if it's something that literally your life would come to a standstill, you gotta have 2.
I should get a lathe with some kind of blade. I've never used a lathe. And a rubber tree. Then I could make my own 30-cent gaskets.
Oh, you should.
And
Maybe
this is folks, this is what it's all about. It's figuring out where's your limit. Can I make this? Okay, I can't make this. How do I deal with this?
Yes. What about communications? So what I was thinking for communication redundancy is
I don't like communications in general.
you'd rather be incommunicado.
Yeah, but
Satellite internet. We also have a couple cell phones that can do the data if the internet goes out,
yeah,
which
we
it
could
does do
hotspot
sometimes.
it if we could.
As far as also communicating, we have some apps on our phone that communicate even when your SIM card isn't working, which does happen in Canada. Like Skype or WhatsApp, or there's a few of them.
Wi-Fi based stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then if you're feeling really extra, you can get some of those Baofeng ham radios, which is on our list of the first 300 things to prep. And if you want to try those out, they're actually really cheap to get a 4-pack, and you don't need a ham radio license to listen.
Nice.
So you can try them out and figure things out. And the ham radio license, it really isn't that hard. It's just a matter of memorizing the answers to a bunch of questions of things that you probably will never need to know again.
Sounds
Kind of like high school.
That sounds like when I got my boat license.
Yeah, just memorize this and then never use this information
Go
ever
to
again.
Roger's house and he'll sit you down and
He'll tell you
cost
the answers.
$5, but it's like a whole thing.
Communications, redundancy.
Yeah.
One other thing that it's probably good to know is to not put all your trust into Gmail and to have something else. For example, we use Proton Mail. It's based out of Sweden and then Switzerland.
Yeah.
Sorry. And a really interesting way to communicate with your family if something were to go awry and sideways is you log into your family Proton Mail account and you create a draft of an email and you don't send it.
Oh, you're right.
And then the next person can log into the Proton Mail from wherever he or she is.
Yeah.
He can check in the drafts, and that's how you can communicate without even sending an email.
Life hack.
Life hack. How about having a backup for your septic system? I've seen people online lately, especially the big family Instagrammers, where their septic system will go.
You mean fill?
Yeah.
With sludge.
Yes. And so if you might be in that camp, it is really handy to have a bucket system ready to go if necessary.
Bucket system ready to go, but
don't use it all the time. Is that all that you can think of as far as what you would need to redundant?
That's what we learned with the bucket system.
Yeah.
We just dumped it in a pile. And
composts.
the next year, it was the richest.
Yeah, you put it on your fruit trees.
Scent-free. That's how you can tell.
Yeah.
All the scientists in the world can blabber on about how things are supposed to be. But if it doesn't stink, and it smells like dirt,
it's probably fine.
If it looks like a duck, it's dirt.
You can put it on your trees and you'll have the best crop of apples you've ever had.
Relax. Yeah.
As far as prepping and off-grid goes, I think the most important thing about redundancy is like being flexible and like learning how to like plan B, plan C.
Yeah.
Like getting into the habit of that so that you're not stressed out and paralyzed when things go wrong, because they will.
Yeah, don't what's the term? Pigeonhole? Don't pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah.
Into thinking that things can only work one way. Things can work in an infinite number of ways.
And it's just like they say on that Canadian Prepper podcast, I don't believe things will continue as they are simply because it would be convenient for me.
Yeah, that's...
Because it won't.
Good. So please share this podcast with a friend. Give us a 5-star review. And I'm going to read the quote of the day. We are called to be architects of the future, not its victims. That's Buckminster Fuller.